Story time about how my Bumble date tried to choke me. I mean, he was literally trying to kill me. Disclaimer, is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. This was by far the worst date I've ever been on. Let me just say, I've had really bad dates. A little backstory. It all started last year when I left my broke-ass boyfriend. He would expect me to pay for everything because I was earning more money than him. So literally from one day to the next, I kicked him out of my apartment and I had all this newfound freedom. Now here's the thing. My friends all use dating apps and they never had such bad experiences, so I figured I should try it out too. To tell you that one of my best friends got married to one of her Bumble dates, I had high hopes. I downloaded Bumble the day after I broke up with my boyfriend. It was probably too soon, but honestly, I was just trying to have fun. My first date was okay. I wasn't necessarily attracted to this guy, but he was very successful and very funny. And when a guy can make me laugh, that goes a long way. So it kind of tricked me into believing that he was like, okay. So I decided to go on another date with him. Only the second time, all he kept talking about was Trump. So I got up from the table and I left him there. I mean, that's one thing about me. If I don't like you, I will straight up leave the table. I mean, I'm not wasting my precious time on some guy. Part 2 is a story time about how my Bumble date tried to choke me. This man was trying to kill me. Disclaimer, is not my story time. Was sending me on Instagram. After the first date, I decided to give it another chance. I ended up going on a date with a guy who I'm pretty sure was gay. The whole time we talked about his best friend and how great his best friend was, and he definitely sounded different. So by the end of the date, I asked him if he was bi. He acted all offended and said no. So obviously, I never went on a date with him again. When I got home that night, I decided to get back on the app and look for another date, as you do. And that's when I saw the guy, the one who choked me. Let me start by saying he was definitely the most attractive guy I had seen on the app until that point, which was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go on a date with this guy. Up until that point, all these other guys were like 5s. He was definitely a 10. We connected right away and he asked me out on a date that very weekend. And I said yes. I was so excited to actually meet this one specific guy because he was so attractive. I went all out and went to get waxed. I got my hair done. The weekend comes around and we end up meeting at a bar. We met, sparks flew, it was amazing. But after 3 drinks, he started getting very aggressive. He started grabbing my butt and everything else, if you know what I mean. Part 3 is a story time about how my Bumble date ended up choking me. That's when he started getting sexually aggressive. Like really bad. He had only had his 3rd drink, which led me to believe that he probably had a couple of other drinks before he came to our date. He was trying to grab at everything. My butt and even my V. Of course, I pushed his hands away, and the only reason I didn't leave is because I'm like, okay, he's had a couple of drinks and he's probably just attracted to me, instead of telling him to stop and straight up leaving the bar. After 45 minutes, I told him that I was gonna go home. Then he says, I need a ride home. Can you give me one? And I said yes. Big mistake. We get into my car and he actually started gagging, like he was gonna be sick. I asked him to get out of my car and he said, no, I'm good. And that's when he just leans over and starts trying to kiss me. Instead of a normal kiss, he got up on the chair and on top of me. And I told him to stop, he grabbed my neck. 30 seconds later, I woke up. So yeah, he had choked me. He looked terrified. He got off of me and just left the car. I went straight to the police and they told me that they couldn't actually charge him because I didn't even know his real name. It turns out on the app he had used a fake ID. I reported him to the app, but nothing happened. What should I do?
Story time about how my sister was hooking up with my boyfriend. Little background information, I was 15 and in 10th grade, and I have never had a boyfriend before. Any guy that I was sort of talking to, we never made it out of the talking stage. But fast forward, I met this one guy who we're gonna call Jake, and because of how tragic my love life was, I didn't expect us to get into a relationship, but he ended up asking me to be his girlfriend. So of course I said yes. I was super excited that I had a boyfriend, and then he met my family. And my older sister and I were like super close, so I told her all about him, and she just couldn't wait to meet him. So whenever he met my sister, she was being super talkative to him, and I thought it was just because she was excited to meet him, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I found out my sister was hooking up with my boyfriend. So like I said, he came over, he met my sister, they got along super well. Fast forward, my parents decided to have a family gathering and my sister was like begging me to invite my boyfriend, which I didn't plan on inviting him at all because my family is super annoying and would make a big deal about the fact that this is my first boyfriend. She was like, okay, but if you guys are seriously in a relationship, I think that he should meet your family. So I ended up inviting him. So my mom called me to the kitchen to help pass out drinks, which was super annoying because my sister was literally doing fucking nothing. So after I'm done with that, I'm looking for my boyfriend and he's nowhere to be found. So I go upstairs, and as I'm about to walk up the stairs, both of them come down. And when I asked what was wrong, like why they were upstairs together, she was like, oh, I was showing him to the bathroom, which I felt super weird about, but because she was my sister, I let it go, because you're supposed to trust your family. Part 3 about how my sister got with my boyfriend. So things started to get really sus because every time that he would come over, they would always find a way to be alone with each other. So fast forward, my sister and I are supposed to go to one of her friends' parties. The whole time though, she kept asking me if I would invite my boyfriend. And no offense, I love my boyfriend, but I need space away from him sometimes. And not to mention, I felt like I was dragging him around like a dog because she was the one who would want me to invite him everywhere. Fast forward, I end up inviting him to the party. My sister gets super drunk, really sick, and my boyfriend offers to take her to the bathroom. And I was like, excuse me, I'm her sister. I can do that. Thank you very much. So after I say that, my sister looks at me and she was like, I would appreciate it if you would just stop being like this because I feel super sick right now. Like, okay, play the victim. Anyway, so I go to check on them in the bathroom. They're not in there. And one of the bedroom doors was open, so when I went in there, I saw them doing the nasty. I asked her how long this had been going on, and she said it was since the first time that they met. And now I'm ignoring my sister until she goes to college.
Am I the asshole for leaving the restaurant after my boyfriend refused to pay for my meal? So I lent my boyfriend some money a few weeks ago because of something that he needed, and he promised to pay me back as soon as possible. He was supposed to pay me back 5 days ago, but something came up and he didn't. Okay, no problem, I try to be patient. Well, yesterday we planned to go out with some friends at night for dinner. Yesterday after I came back from work, I was robbed in the bus and I had all my money and cards stolen. That's awful. I canceled my cards, but the bank customer service told me my new card with my new details, both physical card and the digital details for Apple Pay, would be available for me in the morning. So at dinner with my boyfriend and friends, I told my boyfriend if he could pay me back the money or at least pay for my meal. He didn't say yes or no, just a simple don't worry. When the order came, he only ordered for himself and told me he can't cover for me. Am I the asshole for leaving the restaurant after my boyfriend refused to pay for my meal? We went to dinner with my boyfriend and friends, and I asked my boyfriend if he could pay me back my money or at least pay for my meal since I had none. He replied a simple don't worry, and as we started ordering, he only ordered for himself. He told me that he can't cover for mine, at least at the moment, so I better not order anything and just have some bites from his meal. I was so mad and frustrated because he promised me to give me the money. He then claimed something came up and couldn't give me back the money, then ordered a nice meal for himself and just told me to eat his scraps. He said he wouldn't pay me back or at least my meal, and I'd be the only one sitting there with no meal in front of me. I said this is ridiculous, got up, and left. Our friends now believe it was very low of me to get up and leave and how I should just be polite and stay there. So, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for touching my belly while pregnant? I am currently in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy and I'm due this fall. My sister and her husband have 2 girls and decided they were done having children a few years ago. She then got an IUD and he got a vasectomy. Well, last year they had a reversal and a removal because they decided they wanted more kids. On to the issue at hand. I found out I was pregnant quite a while ago, and since the day my sister found out about my pregnancy, she refused to talk to me or be where I am. This was until Mother's Day. She showed up and ignored me. My mom thinks that me ignoring my pregnancy is the best for when I'm around everyone to not hurt her feelings. A couple days ago, we were all at my parents' house and I got a really strong kick to the ribs. I reached down and rubbed my belly to ease the cramp. My sister made a face and my mom scolded me for rubbing my pregnancy in my sister's face. Am I the asshole for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? I, female 32, have been with my husband Bob, male 39, for 3 years, married for 1. His mom has a habit of keeping me out of most of their functions with the excuse of you work too much. Not true, because sometimes I do make myself available, but yet I find myself excluded. Also, this is a new curling one, so I'm just getting the hang of it. Don't be mean in the comments, please. Thank you. Last week, his mom invited us for a celebratory dinner at a restaurant after she completed her recovery. I worked that day, but I let everyone know that I'd be there at 8 p.m. and Bob obviously knew I was coming. When I arrived at the restaurant, I saw the table was full. All the chairs were taken and I just stood there with complete puzzlement while Bob and his mom just stared at me. His mom then told me there was no place left for me and that I could either have Bob get up and take a seat or go home. Am I the asshole for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? Bob and his mom just stared at me and his mom said there was no place for me and that I could either have Bob's seat or go home. I was upset, but instead of going home, I went and took an entire table for me. Bob and his mom watched with their eyes popping out of their heads like they saw something so shocking. Not gonna lie, I did get weird looks from the guests, but so did Bob and his mom, and it was awkward in all honesty. I ate my dinner, ate my dessert, and then I went home. I even saw Bob and his mom staring grudgingly while I was walking out. When I got home, he yelled at me and said that I embarrassed him in front of her guests. I asked what I was supposed to do after I got denied a seat, and he told me that it wasn't his nor his mom's fault that other people arrived before me. I said that he could have saved me a chair, and he said that I could have just left and reminded me that I was just a guest.